As Gio mentioned the other day, sometimes transfer rumours are just believable. And I think in the case of Harvey Barnes, we've got one right there. Not only is it believable in terms of the club's interest, it's also believable in terms of the sort of level of player, if you like. Now, there are so many rumours going around with West Ham at the moment. I don't mean transfer rumours. I'm prepared for transfer rumours at the moment. You expect them. I enjoy them. I enjoy the transfer tittle-tattle. But I mean in terms of unpacking what the hell is going on with the club. You listen to some reports, we only want English players. Some of them we're going to change our director of football. Some people claim to know who that director of football it might be. It might be Mitchell from Monaco. Has been one that I've heard bandied around quite a lot. I think probably the most interesting discussion point at the moment is David Moyes' future, because from reliable sources you just heard a complete contradiction of stories over the past 2 weeks. First one is that David Moyes is not getting another penny to spend. The second one is that David Moyes gets to decide his own future. There's another one where David Moyes only stays in the event of us winning the Conference League. There's another rumour which suggests David Moyes walks out irrespective of what happens on his own terms. Some say he would agree to work with a new director of football, be it Mitchell or anybody else. Some say he would turn around on his heels in disgust at such a prospect. When you start to unpack it, it's really difficult to know what to believe. So actually, it's weird that sometimes you find so many rumours that are more unbelievable than the transfer rumours. But I think there's just so many and they're so varied with the David Moyes type that I think I'm just going to assume at the moment that he's going to stay. Now, if he does stay, would David Moyes want Harvey Barnes? Yes, absolutely. As Gio mentioned the other day, perfect David Moyes player. But let's move the David Moyes thing to one side for a moment now, because I actually think he's the right player at the right time for West Ham. Sometimes a player comes along. I've often spoken historically. West Ham needed a little favour, or we needed a broken player. Paolo Di Canio was the prime example. Paolo Di Canio's talent was enough for him to be playing on the world stage. Because of his temperament, because of the way he pushed the referee over, because of his lack of willingness to maybe play away from home and stuff like that. There was enough character traits, I think, there that turned off a lot of the top clubs. So it meant West Ham sort of had a clear run at him. We got a talented player, but he was on his day. He was every much as good as Bergkamp or Zola or any of those players. And I think that's always been the case with West Ham. You look at Payet coming in. Payet had pretty much a checkered career, and you know what? That's what we got. We sometimes have to get the wayward genius if they're going to be absolutely brilliant. So my point is there has to be a reason why the top clubs won't go in for these players. But sometimes I think a player's level is sort of just right. And I look at Harvey Barnes, I think he's an exceptional player. I think he's a really good player. But will Man City, I bloody hope I'm wrong here, by the way, would Man City go in and buy Barnes? I think not. I'm thinking not. I think he is like... Gio made the comparison the other day. He's like Jared Bowen, but on the other wing. I'll make a different comparison, and that is really good at a club like West Ham, but probably not going to go and force his way into Arsenal's first team or whatever. And I think Harvey Barnes might be exactly the same as that. And that's why it's critically important that we sort of flash our knickers at him, really, in the final game of the season. Now, I've seen it written quite a bit that West Ham have got to beat Leicester. Leicester have got to go down, basically, that's the thing. Firstly, irrespective of our result, I don't think it really matters. I think the thing is, I think Everton are playing Bournemouth, and I think Bournemouth done remarkably well this season, particularly bearing in mind O'Neill there as the manager and whatnot. But once Bournemouth got safe, they stopped playing. Hey, that's their prerogative. I certainly wasn't looking to accept any criticism of West Ham when that accusation was being levelled at West Ham. I'm certainly not going to criticise Bournemouth for it. What I think it does is it does give Everton a massive advantage for this one. You've got Leeds they've got to play Tottenham. Tottenham have still got something to play for in the Conference League. And I know, look, a lot of Tottenham fans early on in the season were poo-pooing the Conference League. Tottenham are not in a position to poo-poo a trophy any more than West Ham are. West Ham need a trophy. I'll tell you that now. You know that. I know that. Tottenham also need a trophy. And I think, I'm only talking about it because I think they'll be going for it. And I think it might be it might be a harder game for Leeds, and Leeds were not good when we played them, let's be perfectly honest with you. Leicester City, of course, play us, and I think David Moyes is going to play a relatively strong team. So I do think in terms of the game, it's an opportunity for us to show our stuff, to show what we're made of to Barnes. But only to a small extent. I think us winning the Conference League and getting Europe for a third consecutive season would be the biggest one. So basically, I think what you're saying to him is, look, mate, if Man City are not going to buy you, if Man United are not going to buy you, if Arsenal are not going to buy you, whoever the case may be, then West Ham have got to be the next best option, because, all right, we might not be fighting out with the big boys, but I think it's a fair boast that you could say, hey, look, we qualify for Europe every single season or whatever. You could make that boast. I know it's been the last 3, but it won't be too many clubs of our size who can boast that. I mean, Aston Villa, since Unai Emery's come in, they've done really, really well, but they could lose the opportunity to play European football in the last game of the season, of course. It might be Tottenham, might be Aston Villa, who knows. But West Ham have also got one game to go for it, and I think that is a really good selling point for Harvey Barnes as well. As I say, irrespective of which man, whether David Moyes in place, whether another manager's in place, whether it's a new director of football wants to buy him, whether it's David Sullivan wants to buy him, I think it's clear, and as I say, because I do believe there's some validity in this rumour that I think we're interested in the player. So it's a chance for us as a club, and I think if David Moyes is interested, I think he'll go strong against Leicester, and I think he'll probably want to show him that stuff. And really, you want the player to be able to look at West Ham and think, yeah, I can add something to them, and I think he could. I haven't really discussed his ability as a player much in this. It's all been done before. I think he's really, really good, but I just think in terms of timing, in terms of profile of the club, profile of the player, it's almost perfect timing. A right player at the right time, as I said. I've seen a few people say, Leicester need to go down for it to happen. I don't think so. And there's a really good reason for that. And that is that Leicester are owned by King Power. That's who they're owned by. And they lost. I was looking just before recording this video. I think in 2017, 2018, Forbes magazine, they were valued at £4 billion. Now, for those of you that don't know, they're in the travel business. They're in the airline business, basically. And they took a massive hit during COVID. I mean, a massive hit. And I don't know how accurate the information. I've just looked, and their value appears to have halved, basically, because of COVID. That's a massive hit for anyone to take. And also, I don't know if many people know this, in February 2023, the owner paid off £194 million worth of debt. And he basically turned it into collateral in shares. I think my point is Leicester are struggling financially. You saw that, by the way. Their bit of a botched attempt at trying to sell Fofana to Chelsea. That went on far longer than it should have done. Brendan Rodgers wasn't really facilitated with the necessary funds to move Leicester up the league. You just get the impression, certainly financially, the ambition in the club has probably gone. It's all about surviving now, and I think possibly, when I say surviving, I don't necessarily mean the Premier League. I think they've built that wonderful academy, spent 150 million on the training facilities in the academy. I think it's a case of waiting for that to bear fruit. But they've been hemorrhaging players for quite some time now, and I do think, irrespective of what happens to Leicester, whether they stay up, whether they scrape it, or whether they go down, I do think they're susceptible to bids for someone like Harvey Barnes. Look, I think a major problem with Leicester this season has probably been, we spoke about leaders in a previous video, about there ain't that many leaders around, and well, they actually had one there, Kasper Schmeichel. I don't pretend to know the ins and outs of what happened there, but he was so vocal, very much carried himself as a leader there. And you sort of sell somebody that's going to be that influential in a dressing room, you got problems. They wouldn't have done that unless they had to. And there's certainly been selling players. They haven't been able to tie down Tillemans, who I think has been shocking this season, by the way. Talented player like that, I think he could have done a lot more for Leicester. But hey, look, someone's got to go down. I think Everton stay up for the reasons that I said earlier. And I just think, irrespective of whether Leicester stay up or they go down, I think Barnes is there to be bought, which then comes down to ambition and which club wants to buy him. I think it's hard to say that he will end up at West Ham, but I do think there's a genuine desire from West Ham to buy him. I think if we can get the unfortunate Declan Rice deal wrapped up, we'll probably have a better idea of our budget. We probably need to do that relatively early with Declan Rice. So that's a video for another day. But I do think, in terms of flashing our knickers at a player, I do agree that this is a good time to do it when West Ham play Leicester, final game of the season. But look, Moyes or whoever is scouting the players or looking to bring the players in will know everything about Barnes. I think, but what it is, I think it's a chance to Barnes to look at West Ham, and not just now, but in the Conference League final, and look at West Ham and think, you know what? That's not a bad club. I fancy joining them.